So first up, we have the Honourable Willie Jackson. Very pleased you could meet with us here tonight, Minister. Obviously, he's the Minister for Broadcasting and Media, also Maori Development. He's also Associate Minister for ACC, Housing, Social Development and Employment. Willie has significant working experience both within the Maori community and the mainstream media in print, radio and television. He first became an MP in 1999 for the Mana Motahake Party as part of the Alliance. He was previously also Deputy Leader of the Alliance and played a key role in the formation of an earlier version of the Maori Party. He returned to Parliament as an MP with Labour in 2017. He's been a trade union organiser, a record company executive, a broadcaster, radio host, and held multiple roles as a Maori advocate, including being chair for the iwi radio station network, Te Whakaruru Hau o Te Reo Irirangi Māori. So a very, very warm welcome to you, Willie Jackson. Yes, please.
Kia ora Peter. Kia ora tātou, he honore nui ki te haramai wainganui e koutou. Ki te tautoko te kaupapa tino a tā hue I tēnei pō, nō reira Peter, Miles, e mihana kia kōrua I whakarangatira mātou I tēnei wā, tēnā kōrua, tēnā no tātou katoa. Lovely to come along to support this kaupapa, and geez, I enjoyed that, Miles. I actually agreed with everything, you know. Yeah, it's terrific kōrero. Shame you couldn't have supported me more before the merger, but never mind, we won't. You supported me enough. Thank you, Miles, thank you. But no, I think what Miles talked about, I was listening, and he ticked all the boxes, didn't he? Because it's all about identity. That's what drove us in terms of the merger. And I was thinking about David Beetson, and I think that was one of his dreams, wasn't it, in terms of putting the merger together. And so I was obviously disappointed when we folded the merger in. But what was driving that merger and underpinning that merger was everything that Miles talked about. You know, what is the New Zealand voice? What is the New Zealand identity? And I said this in the newspaper. Is it just about country calendar, which I love, but it's got to be more than that, because Lynn is a stunning example of the diversity of the New Zealand identity, you know, and is that reflected? Is Lynn reflected in our New Zealand public broadcasters? I don't think so. I think you're going a bit far calling RNZ smug there, Miles. I put a lot of money into RNZ, so, you know, I might have to talk to Helen Clark to talk to her about that sort of kōrero. But I think the challenge for us is to come up with a cohesive, coordinated, comprehensive broadcasting strategy that reflects the whole country. That was what underpinned the merger, no doubt about it. When the merger fell over, we had to come up with something else. And I think in the last 7 or 8 months, you know, we've got the frameworks in place. You know, the initial investment in terms of RNZ, which was starved of money for 10 years. 10 years they were starved of money. No wonder Melissa Lee didn't come here. If she had heard you, Miles, she would have run out the door, I think, you know, after that type of kōrero. But, you know, she don't come here because they know what they did. They froze RNZ funding for 10 years. They couldn't do anything. So I think that after the merger fell over, I had a look at things and I thought we've got to get at least the frameworks in place in terms of a broadcasting policy. And getting 25 million extra a year into RNZ was the start of that. Gave them an opportunity in telling a New Zealand story. New Zealand story is not just one story. It's about the Māori story. It's about the Pacific story. It's about the ethnic story. And I'm hoping RNZ can go down that track a bit and get a better national, give them an opportunity to maybe do what they were doing some years back. They haven't had that opportunity. We've changed the board in terms of TVNZ. I think you've seen that. Why? Because we want to reflect what we want, which is we want a strong public broadcaster. And with respect to TVNZ, and, you know, I've got some mates up there in relations, you know, I think there's more of an emphasis on Treasure Island and reality shows than the local programming. Then a show about Lynn, a show about Māori people, Pacifica people. We've got a board in place. I'm really proud of that board we've got in place because they know their obligations in terms of public broadcasting. In terms of the digital bargaining bill, it'll give the little player a chance. Yeah, it doesn't do everything, Miles, but I think it'll give the news producers a chance to actually get some compensation, because they've been ripped off by these global giants. They've been ripped off, and I've had so many people come to my office and ask for us to do something. So I was proud to get that up, along with Helen White here. It's good to see Helen here tonight too, your local MP. We were proud to put that digital bargaining bill up. We got a first reading out. Sadly, I think it'll be thrown out if we're not the government come next time. I don't get where the gnats are coming from. Why wouldn't you have a digital bargaining bill that'll look after the little players in New Plymouth and in Invercargill, whose news just gets taken and they don't get 1 cent back? Not 1 cent back. You know, we have half the, Mark Jennings here tonight, he knows better than anyone. We've got half the journalists that we had now than we had 10 years ago. Huge amount of good journos who've all gone out the door because these big companies come in, take everything and don't give anything back. If we get this bill through, we'll get a couple of $100 million coming back into the market, and I think it will help us in terms of sustaining jobs and everything else. However, what Miles said is right. There's never been enough money put into broadcasting. It's never been a priority. Let's be frank. Labor tried with Helen, National comes in, and it's just not a priority. When we talked about the merger, why would you put so much money into that? What a waste of time. They don't see it as an integral part of democracy. We know how important it is. We know how important our stories are. We know how important it is to reflect our identity. So I'm proud we've got a TVNZ board up, we've got a digital bargaining bill up, we've got major investment into Radio New Zealand, we've got a huge investment now into Māori broadcasting. Well, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've put 90 to 100 million in, and that Māori broadcasting should be reflected in terms of mainstream. So the framework and the positions in place, but I fear for our future because, as Miles said, you know, the funding is really dependent each year on who your broadcasting minister is, because that minister, like I do in Māori development and I've had to do in broadcasting, has to go up to the Minister of Finance, has to work with Treasury in terms of pulling resources back. And we do have to come up with a model that is more effective and more reflective of the broadcasting in this country. And that's why when he talks about what he talked about in terms of a fee is something that we should be considering. So I take what he said really well, and you know you know, otherwise we're just at the whim of politicians, nothing against Grant Robinson, who's the best Minister of Finance you could come across, but it's not a priority this year. No, we've got a cost of living crisis, which we have. But broadcasting is such an integral part of our New Zealand democracy. And if we just leave it to the big global players, we're in trouble. And I'm worried about the future, but I make a commitment that I will continue with that work that is in place, that foundation's in place, but also explore new strategies and look at the type of strategy that Miles talked about, because I think we've got to have something new, we've got to have something different, and broadcasting is so incredibly important in reflecting our country's identity. Kia ora tātou katoa.